Hey, everybody, welcome to our Monday night home base weekly call. I'm Terry Luongo, and it's a pleasure having you join us this evening. And I'm impressed. I'm impressed because it's spring break, and I know that many of you, your children are not in school. Some of you are on vacation, some of you are on holiday. So I'm impressed that you're here with us. And as you know, last week we started a program called it's basic training by what I call the Fab Five. Five of our top national marketing directors have been in collaboration, and they have come up with an amazing program for us. Last week, we kicked it off with the amazing Amber Weaver with part one of the art of selling. Now, because we knew that this was going to be spring break, well, actually, it dawned on us Saturday that it was going to be spring break. We decided to hold off on Amber going with part two because we wanted to keep some consistency with her message. So we kind of turned things around. And part of the basic training program is a program called the Objections Cycle. And our own Jamie Cantrell, there she is, our own Jamie Cantrell has done literally a deep dive into this whole concept of objections. And so she has offered, and her team have been working on this objection cycle for almost 2 months now. And so I've asked her if she would step in and do this for us tonight, because it's important. This is going to expand your mindset about objections. It's such great information. And this is my promise to you. If you keep doing this business, you will come across objections. So, with no further ado, the amazing National Marketing Director, Jamie Cantrell.
Well, thank you, Terry. And I have to tell you, coming off of Amber's talk last week, how many of you are so emotionally driven when she speaks that like you get off the call and you want to clean your house and you want to call every person that you can and invite them to the business? I mean, Amber, hats off to you, girl. You could speak and I will just hear every word you say. I just think you're a beautiful speaker and you deliver a wonderful message. But thanks, guys, for letting me be the fill-in tonight, because sales process, there's a lot of avenues that you can really look at sales. I mean, everything from the promotion of an event, everything from the follow-up to an event, the follow-up to a phone call, the how to actually, believe it or not, close a deal. I mean, I used to cringe at those words, but I'm going to tell you, we have this amazing product, this amazing opportunity, and it does nothing for you if you don't have the skills, the conversational skills to bring someone to this community or bring someone to this product. One of the things I've really gotten fascinated with recently has been the concept of objections. And the reason why, as Terry alluded to, is because we face them all the time. Whether you are a brand new rep, historically it might be more objections with product, or if you're a little bit more seasoned, I promise you it's probably going to be more with the opportunity. But what I know is I was interested because when I discovered in my business that things were stagnant, weren't moving the way I had hoped, I had to come out of a position of being a wantrepreneur, and I want that word to be relevant to you tonight. I wanted my business to grow, a wantrepreneur, into an actual entrepreneur. I had to start with me. So the first thing I want to tell each of you, wherever you are in this journey, wherever your commitment is, if your business is not going the way you want it to go, the first thing you need to check is the mirror. And that was where I was. And so I got really curious. I started really researching what were my chokeholds. So I'm going to ask each of you guys here tonight, I want you, Terry always says the first law of learning is awareness. And I want you each to be aware of what is it in your business that is preventing you from moving forward. And I would dial down to agree that at some point, somebody's objection stalled you out. So first, let's become aware and then understand that repetition, the second law of learning, is the mother of all skill. First law of learning is awareness. The second law of learning is repetition. It is the mother of skill. And notice that I use the word skill. Handling objections is not saved for the limited few. It doesn't mean if you have an extroverted personality, or if you're a really great talker, or if you can give speeches in front of thousands of people, that you're meant to do this business. See, I have seen so many people use these phrases. Well, maybe I'm just not good at this. Well, what does good at this mean? Having a conversation? Talking about something you love? And so the reality is handling objections, guys, has no reflection on who you are as a human being. It has everything to do with, you got to practice this skill. It is a skill set. And it's not one time on this call tonight and then you're done. It's every day. It's every single day. So let me start by giving you a few key points about objections. Number one, shift your mindset tonight to know that every conversation that you're going to have, you should expect them. I want to normalize the fact that anytime you engage in a conversation about Juice Plus or the opportunity, you're going to have an objection. And I want to normalize it because I want it to feel real. I want you to feel so comfortable and so prepared that you're not shocked. Hang on one second. My dog's at my door. Hold on. That happens. That's my objection.
It's a cliffhanger, folks.
Yeah, that may happen a few more times, but that's my objections, right? But here's the deal. How many times have you said you've had an appointment or a phone call with someone, or maybe just in casual conversation, you're like, oh my gosh, I have no idea what's going to happen in this conversation. You schedule this lunch appointment. You love this person. You want them to be on your team. You're like, your upline says, okay, are you ready? And you're like, oh my gosh, I have no idea what's going to happen. Not knowing is dangerous. Not knowing and walking in blind is going to do two things. It's going to kill your confidence, and it's going to stall you out in the process. Okay, so we're going to go through later a couple of normal objections that you get with product and business, but I love this phrase. When you don't know, K-N-O-W, you will always get no, N-O. So first, well, let me give you an example of this. This is relative in all of our lives. The first time you drove somewhere, maybe it was your brand new job or your kid's school, right? You plugged it in on Siri and she gave you a map and it said you should get there in 10 minutes. But because this was new and it was unfamiliar to you and there were bumps in the road and stoplights you weren't expecting and traffic, it took you actually 15, 16, maybe even 20 minutes to get there. But as you began to drive it every single day, you learned which lanes to move into. You learned how to navigate around the potholes. You got into a rhythm. And suddenly that 10 minutes of the drive now takes you 7. How many of you can relate to this scenario in some form or fashion of your life? That is the exact same thing when somebody looks at you and says, I don't want to be pushy or salesy. I don't want to be on your team. If you have no idea how to handle that, then you're going to stall out. But if you are practicing and you know, you're going to be able to redirect that conversation and create something for you and that person. People don't know what they don't know. And if you stop short of doing your part in this, you're selling them short. All right. So the second thing I'm going to tell you is most of the objections you're going to get from people are not actual objections. They're actually problems disguised, or they're complaining. Okay? And they're not real. Let me give you an example. That person who told you that Juice Plus was too expensive, you look on Facebook the next week and they're on a cruise to the Bahamas. And you're going, well, wait a minute. They just told me that $71.25 was too expensive, but they're not. And that's not for us to judge. But you know that they gave you an objection that you know is not necessarily founded in truth. I want to tell you, 99.9% of objections have no real foundation. And we're going to go through what those are here shortly. The third thing I'm going to tell you is there's always only one objection. I want you to remember that. There's always, always only one. You may be in a conversation with someone and you're trying to share with them Juice Plus, and they say, well, I need to ask my husband, and you kind of navigate through that. And then they say, well, it's just so expensive. Your job in the flow of conversation is to discover the real objection buried deep down below. And how do you do that? By asking really good questions. Really good questions. Understand that when you're in a conversation with someone, whether it's about product or business, if you could just for a moment take that hat off, the hat that says, I need to close this deal right now, and just get into conversation like a real human being, then you're going to figure out pretty quickly what their objection is. And I'm going to show you how. So as we move through the fourth and final thing about objections, objections are actually the most amazing opportunity to discover what's really going on. Objections give you the energy and give you the pathway into somebody else's story. If I used to, specifically with regard to the business, I used to get so frustrated and hurt and disappointed if someone would say no about joining my team. But what I realized is that every time someone said, well, I don't want to be pushy, or I don't have the time, my curiosity light bulb started to go off. And it got to be really fun, you guys, to figure out what's really going on here. So if you can shift your mindset a little bit to realize that these objections are not about you, they actually have nothing to do with you. They have nothing to do with the product. They have nothing to do with the company. They have nothing to do with network marketing. It's an opportunity. How many of you think you're probably having that one person in your head right now that you've talked to, that you want on product or you want on team, and you're thinking, okay, I want to revisit that conversation, right? Okay, so handling objections. Well, first let's understand what kind of objections there are out there. This is my favorite part of this call, this section here. Because you know what? The first objection that you're going to face time and time again, day in and day out, day in and day out, it's internal. The objections at hand are the ones that you have. I would guess that the majority of us on this call that have said, I can't get anyone to join my team. Well, let's pause for a second. There's a disconnect there. And the objection, and you may not even know it, is coming from you. Mm-hmm. What is your belief in network marketing? And you know what the best way to figure out where that objection is? Right around the time where you ask the person, are you ready to get started? I want you to pay attention to your behavior at that point. If you talk yourself out of the sale, if you talk yourself out of asking them to join the team or add product, whatever it is, the objection lies with you. So let's get really clear about that, because if you're not aware, you're going to think nobody wants to be a part of what you're doing. If you're not aware, you're going to practice the same habits of behavior time and time again. And then eventually you're going to get so burnt out that there's no results that you're going to say, this doesn't work. This isn't for me. Or you're going to go get distracted and try something else. When all we need to do is figure out, what is it about you that maybe you don't like? 4-month installments with the product yourself. And what happens is when somebody comes at you with an objection, oh, I don't do auto ship. And in your mind, you're like, I don't really like it either. Then you start to actually validate their objection and you don't even know it. Or let's take for the business, for example. What if you say, well, they say, I don't really know about network marketing. Guess what? Maybe you don't know a bunch about network marketing. Guess what's going to happen? You're going to agree with them. End of conversation. So understand that the first objection that you are going to face every single day is going to be you. Some of you, it might be, I don't have time to do this today. That's an objection. For some of you, it's the laundry's a little bit more important. All right, so you have to understand that objections come in a lot of different ways. But if you are interested from shifting from a wantrepreneur to a business owner, then start to analyze internal objections. The second type of objection is external. And that's when you're in dialogue with somebody, and they usually give you 4 types of external objections. The first one is time. Oh my goodness, how many times have you tried to ask somebody to team? They say, I'm so busy. I'm so busy. I don't have time to add one more thing on my plate. I'm in a busy season. That's the first objection you're going to get. The second is price. And I'm going to tell you, no matter what price you give them, they're going to have an objection. Okay? Whether it's Juice Plus is 50 cents or Juice Plus is $1,000, they're going to have the objection of price. The third is either your product or your service. I love the meme that's floating out there. Hey, somebody asks you, someone runs through a Starbucks or a Chick-fil-A, but you sell them a health product and suddenly they're a nutrition label reader, right? They're gonna have an objection about the product or the opportunity. And the fourth is what I call the stall tactic. These are objections that they don't know how to answer you. They don't see value enough to say yes. So those historically look like, I need to check with my spouse. We don't do auto shipment. We don't sign contracts. Gosh, in the chat button, you guys, I would love for you right now to start to type in some of the more common objections that you get. Oh, another one we get for product. I'd like to try the product first before I ever think about selling it. That's an objection. It's buying time. It's stalling. And there's 2 ways to look at it. It's one, revisit the conversation. Have you created enough value? And number 2, are you asking the right kinds of questions to understand what their real objection is? All right, so fill up this chat button with some of the objections that you guys get, because I'll go through a few of them. I want to make sure you get your questions answered. The last kind of objection is the silent objection. No news is good news? Not necessarily, right? In this case, it's always when you don't hear back from people. They read your text, you've seen that it's read, but they don't respond. Or on Facebook Messenger, or this is the one that we all face. It's gonna happen. Remember, I'm normalizing this, but we get our feelings so hurt by this. I call it the day of syndrome. You're having an event. You've worked really hard to buy the fruits and vegetables and the snacks, and you vacuumed the floor and you polished the furniture and you've kicked the kids out of the house, and you've had 5 to 10 people who said they're going to come, and you get that one text or phone call about an hour before the event saying, I'm sorry, I can't come. And you might as well just cancel the whole darn thing, because you're like, why would they not come for me? It's not about you. Life happens. All right, but it's going to happen every single time you have a salad party, a wine event. I want you to expect it and then come up with a solution for it. Okay? So now that we're pretty clear about what objections are, what types they are, how many of you are feeling just a tad bit better that we're all in this together? Right? They happened to Terry Luongo. They happened to Kathy Schlund. They happened to me. The other day, I had a gentleman who was working on my house, who had seen he's worked on my house for years, saw my Juice Plus. He asked me what I did, and I said I was a representative. He goes, oh, it's one of those pyramid thingies, isn't it? That's an objection. And you know how I handle, there's a couple, objections are situational. When you're in passing with people, I tend to use humor as my out to diffuse the objection. So I looked at him, I go, oh my gosh, you silly guy. That is not at all what this is. And I just left it at that. And then he came back and he started to ask me some questions because I didn't throw up my boxing gloves. So on your notes, put a side note, never ever get defensive. You can't fix stupid, right? Never ever get defensive about someone's objection. People don't know what they don't know. Okay? So I've got a formula for you. In the past, I've loved the formula feel, felt, found. But I was getting lots of feels and lots of felts and a lot of founds. And for me, not a lot of it was turning into what I was hoping. So I had to go searching for a new strategy. So I've spent hours listening to two different people, Eric Worre and Grant Cardone, who are really great business professionals. And I combed through a lot of their objections material, and I kind of put a stamp on what I think might work well in our industry, in our particular group. The first step is listen. Just listen to people. A conversation about Juice Plus is not about you vomiting on them about 30 different fruits and vegetables, or that it's a $50 franchise fee, or that this, or the comp plan, or this. Just listen. I told my team last call, I said, shut up. Stop talking. Listen to what they're saying. And you can respond by saying, hey, can I take some notes? Or listen, I'm just going to pause and I'm just going to give you my attention. And automatically you're validating the conversation. The second step is acknowledge. I hear what you're saying. I completely understand. You know what? I even take responsibility for how you feel. Whoa. You start to talk to someone that way, guess what happens? Their walls start to drop. You've now invited them into a dance, a conversation. So listen first, and I mean truly listen. David Beavers put a quote up the other day that rings true with me, and I have to remind myself all the time. Listen not to respond, but listen to hear what they're saying. So listen first, then acknowledge. The third step is isolate. Isolate. This is the point where you get really clear that what they're telling you is their true objection. Remember, there's only one, and a lot of times it's not really the first thing they tell you. So here's how I would handle it in this situation. Let's say somebody comes to me and says, Jamie, gosh, it just costs so much. Ironically, I never get that objection anymore. It's funny how as you practice your skills, you grow and you do it, you don't tend to get some of the common objections when you're a little bit earlier in the business. But I would say in the isolate phase, I would say, Susie, is cost the only concern you have? Is there anything else that I need to be made aware of? Anything else that would keep you from moving forward today? And wait for them to respond. Because if they start to say, well, no, this and that and the other, then you've got to go back and you've got to start to ask some more questions. But in the isolate phase, get very clear about their objection, because that'll tell you where you need to go. Is cost the only concern you have? Is it the only thing that I need to be made aware of? Then the next stage is what I call probe. This is probing. You're still seeking more information. You're taking your questioning to the next level. Phrases such as, tell me more about that. I really like to learn what's happening that makes you feel that way. Give me some more color. Give me some more information here, because I really want to help customize a program that's right for you. So you are probing here and you're getting them to talk. When people talk, you're going to figure it all out, I promise you. And then the last stage, and I borrowed this from Grant Cardone. I posed it to my team to come up with a little different name with it, but it's the tie down. Okay, the tie down phase. And the idea at this point is to frame the conversation so that they make a real decision with you right then. See, here's what we do. We get an objection, and our natural instinct is to say, well, I'll just send you some more information and I'll call you next week. You get uncomfortable. You're not sure how to respond. So you say, well, I'll just send you some more information. I've done that a million times. And guess what happens? When you go to follow up, they don't answer. When you go to follow up, they still haven't made a decision. When you go to follow up, they haven't looked at the information you've sent them. So now you've taken something that should have happened in that initial conversation and you've expanded it, for years, right? How many of you felt that way? And then you're like, then you say to yourself, well, I don't want to be that pushy person. Well, how about we handle it the first time, right? Let's try to. And I'm not going to tell you it's a perfect science. I'm not going to say you're going to close every deal the first time, but try this out. This is one of my favorite lines. Try this out as you're getting closer to getting them to sign up. Hey, assuming I can make sense that it costs too much for you and your family, assuming I can make sense of that, can we discuss you getting started today? Assuming I can make sense of the fact that you might be too busy. Assuming I can make sense of the fact that you need to run this by your husband. Assuming I can make sense of, would you be open to your healthy start? Would you be open to taking a look at the business today? Is that a hard question to ask? You like it? I love it. Well, listen, for those of you who just said to yourself, I don't know that I can ask that. That seems uncomfortable. That's your objection. You need to ask yourself, why is that question hard? You don't want to gift them Juice Plus? You don't want them to join your team? All right, so I want you to practice those 5 steps with any objection you get. It doesn't matter. Jerry Moran Voxer me today, and she said, Jamie, how would you deal with someone who thinks what we do is a pyramid scheme? And my first question back to Jerry or to anyone is, do you think it's a pyramid scheme? What don't you trust about it? What are you unsure of? Get clarity and then do your research. Figure out how to work through your own objection. If you don't have an objection, practice the 5 steps. You're in conversation first, you listen. Shake your head, you're listening, you're taking notes. Then you acknowledge, you say, listen, I hear you. I totally understand how you feel about this. At one point I didn't know either. Then you isolate. Get clear here. You say, is the pyramid thing the only concern that you have? I mean, let's be honest. Is there anything else I need to be made aware of? Then you probe. Tell me more. Tell me why you think that. I'm curious, because here's what I know. When most people think it's a pyramid, they've either had a bad experience themselves or they've seen it and they don't like how it works. But I'm here to tell you that's not been my experience at all. Tell me more about that. And then the last thing I would say in the tie down phase is, hey, assuming that we can come to head here, that you can see that what I do is actually one of the most amazing business models out there. Would you be open to really partnering with me? Can we talk about it today? Is any of that hard? Now, here's your homework. Here's your homework, because you know it's coming. I want you to get in front of a mirror. And I want you to write down the objections that you get. All right? I'm looking at Chelsea, who's on my team, and I know she's relatively new in the business. So I would imagine she's getting a lot of hangups for product right now. Okay? And it's deflating. But it takes one person to say yes for all of you guys to be like, back on, game on. So I'm going to encourage you, don't let your emotions dictate your business. Be in no matter what. All right? But get in front of a mirror and practice. Be the funny person. Like your spouse walks in, sees you talking to yourself in the mirror. You are that crazy person. You're in the car. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I talk to myself. True story, and I know we're at 8:30. I was walking my dog in the neighborhood, and I always have my earbuds in, listening to Tony Robbins, to Grant Cardone, to Eric Worre, to Rachel Hollis, to Brendan Burchard. I am constantly pumping my brain full of smarter people. And I was practicing what they were saying, trying to get it in my memory. And I turned the corner, and one of my best friends sees me walking my dog, talking to myself. I'm like, oh, you caught me. It was one of the most embarrassing moments, but I was practicing. Practice in the mirror, practice by yourself, and then role play. Call your upline and say, listen, I've got some objections. I don't know how to handle them. Now they're normalized. You don't think it's about you, but you need to practice the skill. Work with your upline. Work with your sidelines. But start to use the 5 steps and start to create a rhythm with how you respond to things. And I promise you, you're going to start to see my friend Abby, who's also on my team. Abby would probably give you a testimony that we worked through some of her objections with the team. And she started practicing it, and a couple days later, she added a new team member. And she Voxered and she said, oh my gosh, this was a lot easier than I thought it was. And I'm like, what have I been doing for 6 years? So I just want to tell you it works. Just practice. That's all I have for tonight. That's what I got. Hope it helps. You're on mute, T.
Hang on. Okay, I'm good. Okay. Jamie Cantrell, that was a master class in objections. And that you shared this with the group. It's nothing short of a gift.
Thank you.
So this is part of basic training, guys. And I'm just so impressed. But let me just add one thing, because this whole series, all of these questions, what I know to be true is that people will talk to you. People will communicate with you when they feel safe.
Yes.
And when you talked about, take a look at your internally your evaluation, what are you feeling? If you're feeling defensive, that will shut down communication like that. If you're feeling angry because of the objection, it will shut down communication like that. So people communicate when they feel safe. So the more powerful you are, the more that you know that you know that you know, your prospect will feel safe. All right, guys, this was magnificent tonight. I took Jamie's 5 pages of notes.
I love you, Terry.
All right. Okay, so next week, we're staying with boot camp. We're staying with basic training. Next week, Amber Weaver is coming back with part 2 of the art of the sale. Guys, I don't know about you, but this program does not disappoint. Thank you, everybody. Good night. Have a blessed week. Enjoy your spring holiday. Be safe. Know we love and appreciate you.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you.
That was amazing.